Welcome to Voice of Africa, where we bring you the most compelling stories and insightful analyses on the issues that matter most to the African continent. From groundbreaking political movements to transformative economic developments, we delve deep into the narratives shaping Africa's present and future. Whether you're passionate about the continent's rich cultural heritage, interested in its geopolitical dynamics, or simply want to stay informed on the latest news, Voice of Africa is your go-to source. Join our growing community by subscribing to the channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. At Voice of Africa, your voice matters, so let's amplify it together. Have you ever wondered what drives the intense anti-colonial sentiment that has been sweeping across Africa, particularly in countries like Burkina Faso? Under the leadership of Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso has become a beacon of resistance against the lingering influence of colonialism and neo-colonial practices. But what exactly is fueling this movement, and why is it drawing such sharp reactions from Western nations? To understand the rise of Ibrahim Traoré's anti-colonial movement, we need to delve into the history of Burkina Faso and the broader African continent. The legacy of colonialism in Africa is one of exploitation, oppression, and the systematic dismantling of indigenous cultures and governance structures. Even after gaining independence, many African nations found themselves trapped in a new form of colonialism, neo-colonialism, where foreign powers continued to exert control through economic, political, and military means. This control often manifested in the form of unfair trade agreements, foreign debt, and the influence of multinational corporations, all of which hindered true sovereignty and development. Ibrahim Traoré, a charismatic and determined leader, has emerged as a key figure in challenging this status quo. His anti-colonial stance is not just rhetoric. It is rooted in a deep-seated belief that Burkina Faso and other African nations must reclaim their autonomy and chart their own course free from external interference. Traoré's movement is characterized by a strong rejection of Western hegemony, particularly the influence of former colonial powers like France. One of the central tenets of Traoré's anti-colonial movement is the demand for economic independence. For decades, African nations have been subjected to economic policies imposed by Western-controlled institutions like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank. These policies, often termed structural adjustment programs, have forced countries to implement austerity measures, privatize state-owned enterprises, and open their markets to foreign competition. While these measures were presented as necessary for economic growth, they often resulted in increased poverty, inequality, and the erosion of social services. Traoré and his supporters argue that these policies are nothing more than a continuation of colonial exploitation under a different guise. They point out that the wealth generated by African resources, whether it be minerals, oil, or agricultural products, continues to flow out of the continent, benefiting foreign corporations and nations while leaving African countries impoverished. To counter this, Traoré has called for a re-evaluation of trade agreements and a push towards economic self-sufficiency. This includes supporting local industries, promoting regional trade within Africa, and reducing dependency on Western markets. The anti-colonial movement in Burkina Faso also has a strong cultural dimension. Traoré has emphasized the importance of reconnecting with the nation's pre-colonial heritage and reviving indigenous traditions and practices that were suppressed or marginalized during the colonial period. This cultural revival is seen as a way to restore a sense of identity and pride among the people of Burkina Faso, as well as a means of resisting the cultural imperialism that often accompanies Western influence. Of course, Traoré's anti-colonial movement has not gone unnoticed by the West. Western nations, particularly France, have responded with a mix of concern and hostility. France, which has long maintained a presence in its former African colonies, sees Traoré's actions as a direct threat to its strategic interests in the region. The French government has criticized Traoré's policies, portraying them as radical and destabilizing. There have been allegations of foreign interference in Burkina Faso's domestic affairs, with some suggesting that Western powers are actively working to undermine Traoré's government. This tension between Burkina Faso and the West is not just about economic or political interests, it also reflects a deeper ideological clash. Traoré's anti-colonial movement challenges the very foundations of the Western-dominated global order. It questions the legitimacy of Western intervention in African affairs and advocates for a new multipolar world where African nations can assert their sovereignty without being subject to external dictates. In the middle of this growing tension, Traoré's government has sought to build alliances with other nations that share its anti-colonial stance. This includes strengthening ties with countries like Russia and China, which have positioned themselves as counterweights to Western influence. These alliances are not without controversy, as they raise questions about the potential for new forms of dependency or exploitation. However, for Traoré and his supporters, these partnerships are seen as a necessary step in breaking free from the grip of Western hegemony. At this point, if you're finding this discussion insightful, don't forget to hit the like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more in-depth analyses on critical geopolitical issues. As the anti-colonial movement in Burkina Faso gains momentum, it has also sparked a broader debate about the future of Africa. Across the continent, there is a growing sense of disillusionment with the post-colonial order and a desire for true independence. Leaders like Traoré are seen as symbols of this new wave of African nationalism, which seeks to reclaim agency and redefine the continent's relationship with the rest of the world. However, the road ahead is fraught with challenges. The global economic system is deeply entrenched, and any attempt to disrupt it is likely to be met with resistance. Western nations, with their vast resources and influence, are unlikely to relinquish their control without a fight. Moreover, the internal dynamics within African nations themselves are complex, with competing interests and power struggles that could undermine the unity and effectiveness of the anti-colonial movement. Traoré's government will also need to navigate the delicate balance between asserting independence and avoiding new forms of dependency. While partnerships with non-Western powers may offer an alternative to Western dominance, they also come with their own set of risks and challenges. The key will be to ensure that these relationships are based on mutual respect and benefit, rather than replicating the exploitative dynamics of the past. In conclusion, Ibrahim Traoré's anti-colonial movement in Burkina Faso is a bold and ambitious attempt to reshape the nation's future and challenge the legacy of colonialism in Africa. It represents a broader shift towards African self-determination and a rejection of external control. However, it also faces significant obstacles, both from within and outside the continent. The reactions from Western nations highlight the stakes involved and the potential for conflict as African nations seek to assert their sovereignty. If you want to stay updated on how this movement evolves and what it means for the future of Africa, make sure to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell. Your engagement helps us bring you more content that matters. Let's continue this conversation. Leave your thoughts in the comments below and share this video with others who are passionate about Africa's future.